Can the Kamado Joe Slow Roller deliver the same goods in the Konnected Joe? Today, we're going to find out. Okay, to start, we're going to remove our divide and conquer rack. The Slow Roller accessory comes with an extra riser that's just a little bit different in dimensions. I'm going to drop in some cherry smoking wood on the bottom here that will cover up with charcoal. Add our charcoal. I'm going to add in one more wood chunk. The automatic fire starter in the Kamado Joe is on the bottom, so we get our fire burning up, which is a little bit different than usual. So I'm going to place a piece of smoking wood in the middle of the coal here, just so that as the coal and the fire starts to come up, that we continue to get some good smoke. The base of our slow roller, extension, top plate, drip pen. I'm going to see if it'll clear, and I don't think that's going to clear. I think the smokeware drip pen is too thick to sit, so I'm just going to use the foil on top of the slow roller. Cooking grids. We're ready to fire it up. Power on. Automatic fire starter, and set our temperature. Draft doors already closed. I'm going to go for 275. Let that warm up. Adjust our top vent to just barely open. Let's go prep our ribs. All right, we got our baby backs. I'm not going to do anything too fancy today, as I really just want to focus on seeing how the slow roller does. So we're not even going to remove the membrane. I've done a couple tests head to head, and that doesn't make a big difference. So for the extra effort, we're just going to keep it nice and simple. Get these out, pat them dry, add a little bit of mustard as a binder, and then I'm going to be using one of the pre-made rubs that I bought for my how to make your own rubs video, but this is starting to clump up, which is one of my issues with pre-made rubs, and I want to get through it. So I'm going to use that today instead of my own, but be sure to check out that video if you're interested in making your own rubs. There's a lot of great flavor combinations that you can do. So I'll take you fast forward while we get these out, pat them dry. Hit these with some mustard, top and bottom. All right, these look good. Let's go see if the Konnected Joe's up to temperature. Okay, our Konnected Joe is up to temperature and still climbing. I think it's actually about 25 degrees beyond what I set it for. So that algorithm is maybe going to need a little bit of work, but let's get our 2 racks of baby back ribs on here, which they should just fit. I'm used to my Big Joe where I don't have to trim anything to get things on. But we could just squish these in here. I think we'll be just fine. Looks good. Let's close it up and get cooking. So now that we have our baby back ribs on, let me fill you in on the game plan. I'm going to keep an eye on the temperatures that I'm seeing on the digital display versus the dome temperature. Part of the difference that I suspect, because they don't match right now, we've overshot our temperature of 275 by nearly 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So definitely I think that algorithm needs a little bit of fine tuning to not overshoot so far. Or perhaps it's the automatic fire starter. 15 minutes for a low and slow smoke might be a little too much, because that's over igniting some coals, and then in a very energy efficient grill like a Kamado, it takes a while for that to cool down. So I'll report more as I learn what's going on there, but if I go just what I'm used to, the temperature gauge on the dome, it's right at 275, so I'm pretty happy with that. I suspect some of the difference in information is the pit probe on the back of the Konnected Joe is at the back, and it's more close to grid level, and so there's always going to be about a 30-degree difference, at least on the Kamado Joe Classic from my experience, and the ones that I've owned for several years, that you'll get a much hotter temperature right on the grid than you do on the dome. And so if that's what's going on here, there's a 30-degree difference. I'm completely happy with where the dome temperature gauge is, as that's the 275 that I want. So I'm going to let these smoke, keep an eye on that for about 2 hours, spraying if we need every sort of hour or so, so that'll be 1 or 2 sprays, and then I'm going to move the ribs into the foil boat. I love the foil boat method for ribs, especially on a grill like the Kamado Joe where we have our heat source coming up from underneath. If we don't do that, we get a little bit crispy on the bottom, so any of that rubs that we've used today's in particular has a little bit of sugar that can burn, so we'll get some crispy bones and maybe risk of burning things. So by moving them to the boat, it's going to help protect the bottom from overcooking, capture some of that pork tallow that gets rendered out, pork fat, as we cook that down, and leave the top of the ribs exposed so they continue to absorb smoke and build that bark, and it'll turn out an amazing result. So I'll rejoin you a little bit later on when we've got a couple updates to share. Okay, so update. As you can tell from the cook time here and taking a look at our ribs, I skipped doing the foil boat. That's because I was busy making another video. I missed that window, and they looked like they were doing just fine and they didn't need it. So now is time to get them off the grill over to the kitchen for our taste test. But I also want to share a quick update on the temperature. I definitely think it's the automatic fire starter overshooting the temperature in terms of how much coal that's lighting. As later on, I did continue to see a difference between my dome temperature versus what I was seeing on the digital readout of about 20 to 30 degrees Fahrenheit. So I bumped the temperature up to 295 on the grill to accommodate for that. So that way I was seeing about 275 on the dome, 295 on the grid temperature. And ever since I did that, I got a nice flat line, and it's held that for about 4 hours. This is not an AI temperature control problem versus, I think, maybe just too much charcoal at the beginning being lit. I think in the future, what I might do if I'm doing a low and slow cook is use the automatic fire starter, but not turn the grill on, because I think that added air just helps ignite more coals too quickly, and then I'm having, again, obviously that issue of overshooting the temperature at the beginning. So game plan for next time, I'll just use the automatic fire starter with no fan, turn it on once we are ready to add our food, and I think that should help solve the issue that I've been running into on a couple of the videos where you see it overshooting, particularly early on. Let's get our ribs off, and I'll meet you over in the kitchen for our taste test. Well, these certainly look the part. Love how that bark came together on the outside, and forgot to mention, if you see on the grill the set temperature of 150 degrees. This is a feature I discovered on the Masterbuilt, where once I'm realizing the ribs or whatever I'm cooking is getting close to being done, I can turn it into a bit of a holding chest. So when these started getting close, I bumped the temperature down to 150 and just let it start to cool off so that these could almost rest, or hot rest, do a hot hold inside of the grill. So let's get these flipped over, cut out a couple ribs, and see how we did for our taste test. Well, my split attention on doing two videos at once today has cost these ribs a little bit, as they're a touch overdone. But that's okay. We have some young kids who like fall off the bone, but for me, I prefer nice bite through tenderness, and I think we've overshot this. So if we were to take an internal temperature, we're probably in that 207 to 208 range, which is just a little bit too soft for the ribs holding their structure together when you're slicing as well as biting. But that's the life of a YouTuber when you've got a Saturday and try and pack in as much as you can, as that's really the only day of the week I get for recording. Enough of that, let's see how they taste. Shouldn't hold back the SloRoller in terms of validating this test, but let's get a bite. So in terms of fall off the bone, you see these are clearly, again, getting a little bit too far for my personal taste as one bite, and the meat just comes right off. But this does confirm for those that are interested in asking, does the SloRoller fit? Yes. Does the SloRoller work? Yes. And if you want to turn out a better rib, pay more attention and don't let them cook a little bit too long. But these still taste great despite not having the texture that I'm after. So if you have or are in line for a Kamado Joe Konnected Joe and are curious if the SloRoller can still do its magic inside of a grill controlled by artificial intelligence, I'm going to give this a thumbs up and say absolutely. Just bad on me for missing the mark on texture today. That's it though for today. I'm James from Smoking Dad Barbecue signing off. And remember, don't be afraid to fire it up.